Hey everybody, it's time for Writers Workshop. We are starting the first session of this school year. We are going to be writing realistic fiction, so made up stories that seem real. And so our first session is kind of about how to get the ball rolling. We're going to be taking stories from ordinary moments. You've done this in past years, taken small moments of your life in your lives and made them into stories. But we've always before made them nonfiction stories, and this time we're going to be turning them into fiction. So I'm so excited that today marks our first day in the writing workshop together. It's a big occasion for the new school year. Some of us are in fourth grade now, fifth grade, sixth grade, and you guys are just becoming stronger and stronger writers as we go. Um, so last year you wrote personal narratives where you told about moments that happened to you. You taught with expert books. You taught people things that you were experts about. We did some writing about science experiments that we did, and we made lab books. So you are really quite the accomplished group by this point, and you have a lot of experience writing. And I'm sure that you are ready to just dying to dive right in and start writing. And don't worry, we're going to probably start doing that today. But since you already really know so much about writing and have matured so much over the summer, and since I saw you guys in March, you're going to be starting writing in a new way that more closely matches the more grown up version of who you are now. So our first unit this year will be the realistic fiction. And today's important because you're going to start collecting ideas for fictional stories in your new writer's notebooks. Since everything's digital in 2020, our writer's notebooks will be found in our Google Classroom under writing. We will go to writing here, and we have a writer's notebook. Mr. Stancer and his Bitmojis appear once again for revenge. And here is kind of where you're going to write potential story ideas. In the past, we've done it in little tiny notebooks. Now we can keep it digitally and we can have access to it forever. So that is our writer's notebook for ideas. And I want to teach you where writers actually look for those ideas. That's kind of the purpose of today's session, is where to find those ideas for those stories. The most important thing that I can teach you is this, that writers get ideas for fiction, not real stories, just as you get ideas for almost any kind of writing by paying attention to the small moments in your own lives. And for instance, when I was a little boy, I thought a fiction writer just kind of looked into the clouds and thought, I want to write a story about castles and puppy dogs. But when I grew up, I actually learned how real fiction writers actually get their ideas. For instance, did you know E.B. White, who is the author of Charlotte's Web, got the idea by actually laying on top of the hay in his own barn, watching a little spider in the corner spinning her web or his web? I don't know. The barn animals, the pigs, the geese were all around him. And on the rafters above all of them was this little spider who delicately wove this tapestry. And he probably wrote down in his writer's notebook like we have here an entry about that moment. And then later on, when he was sitting at his desk thinking, what could I write about? He reread his little writer's notebook and he remembered that moment when he was sitting there looking at that spider with the pigs and the geese and the weasels and thought, I could write a story about that. And of course, when I say that writers get ideas for writing by paying attention to their own lives, I do not mean that writers just record exactly what happened to them and call that story fiction, right? E.B. White laid on that bale of hay and watched a spider, but he just not didn't watch her just spell out words, some pig, like in the book. And he did not watch her go and save that runt pig from the butcher. He made that stuff all up based on kind of his surroundings, right? So fiction writers do pay attention to their own lives. They cup their hands around the tiny particles of their own lives and they wait. Sometimes while they wait, the idea for a story can grow. And here's my biggest lesson of all today, that imagination really does matter for fiction writers. like E.B. White. You can find really significant stories like Charlotte's Web in something as ordinary as what you saw a spider, making something in the corner of a barn. And I know we don't live in a barn, but you can write a small moment story from your lives or remember anything else that you've ever seen or done and say, wait a minute, this has given me an idea for a fiction story. Maybe I could write a story about a kid getting stuck in the curly thing at school, right? You could write a whole story about that. I miss Jacob. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to think about a small moment from my life, like remembering some of the strategies I've learned, remembering strategies I've learned in the past for getting short stories. One of my favorite strategies is to write about times when you feel a really strong emotion, right? When you were really happy, really sad, really angry. Those usually make really good stories. And it's a good strategy because strong emotions can make great real stories and fiction stories. And so I have this little anchor chart here, how to get ideas for personal narratives. Think of a person who matters to you. Think of your mom, your dad, a family member, a friend, and a time you guys shared. Think of small moments that you've had in your life and choose one of these things and write the whole story and make it up as you go. You can have a story about Kahim at the playground, and these are real people, but you're going to make a made up story, and that should be fun. And this slide will also be here on your writer's workshop. So, sorry, let me get my thoughts. So I'm on the lookout for possible stories. All right. Let me think of a story. I've got my document here. And let's see, I'm going to write about a time that I remembered. I think I was in school. And I remember a girl in high school fell down the stairs. One of my high school had two stories on one of the buildings, and she fell down the stairs. And I'm going to turn that into a fake story, a fiction story. All right, so I'm going to say, hold on to the railing. I heard Mr. Oser scream. I heard Mr. Oser say as our class headed down the stairs. I'm going to do the voice to text. Let's try it out. Had just practiced square dancing in the gym, and I was feeling a little wild after doing all that dancing, period. I turned to my best friend Johnny and started joking around. What to doocy do? I asked. Just then, I felt my feet start to slip out from under me. So it's starting to show off a little bit, right? Um, and when you do use voice to text, you got to go in later and fix your mistakes. And what I meant to say was, want to do see do. So I'm asking my friend if he wants to dance around because we had just been doing the square dancing. So kind of started my story there, right? The realistic thing that happened was a girl fell and I turned it into me falling. I put Mr. Oser there. I pretended I was square dancing in the gym. So I stopped right there. And as I was writing down the story, I realized that I didn't even need to finish writing it down in my notebook because I already started to get a possible story here from my real life story. So I started thinking about other things that I could write, but this is kind of where I started. And this is how you're going to take a moment of something that really happened to you and turn it into a realistic fiction story, okay? So today we are going to need to use our imagination to write. We're going to think that most fiction writers found ideas not by looking up into the clouds and things of dogs and puppies, but about things that have actually happened to them. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to start off by using our writer's notebook here and coming up with ideas for what we could write about, come up with 2 or 3 ideas, and then go ahead and get started on your writing. Okay? And have fun.